In the ancient city of Jerusalem, on a high hill overlooking the bustling streets and fertile valleys below, stood the grand palace of King David, a man renowned for his wisdom, courage, and faith in God. David, the shepherd boy turned mighty king, had conquered kingdoms, defeated giants, and penned psalms that still echo through centuries. His influence extended across Israel, and his reign was marked by prosperity and military triumphs. Yet amidst his success, within the walls of his palace, a tragic story unfolded, a story of silence, betrayal, heartbreak, and the devastating consequences of neglecting one's family responsibilities. King David had many children from different wives and concubines, a reflection of the royal customs of the time. From these unions, he had numerous sons and daughters, each with their own hopes, dreams, and ambitions. Among his children was his eldest son, Amnon, a young man who was honored as the heir apparent, and his brother Absalom, famed for his striking beauty and charisma. There was also Tamar, a young princess known for her kindness and innocence, the beloved sister of Amnon and Absalom. Tamar was a beautiful and gentle maiden, cherished by her family. She was loved for her grace and virtue, and her heart was filled with kindness toward all. She would walk the palace halls, her footsteps echoing softly as she moved through the grand corridors, unaware of the dark storm gathering within her family. She carried herself with dignity, trusting her father's protection and the customs of her people. But deep within her heart, a shadow was forming, a shadow that would soon cast a long and painful darkness over her life. Meanwhile, Amnon, her half-brother, was consumed by a dangerous obsession. Unlike Tamar, who was innocent and pure, Amnon's heart was troubled. Scripture describes him as being deeply infatuated with Tamar, so much so that he became physically ill from his obsession. His mind fixated on her beauty and innocence, and he could think of nothing else. His desire grew into a dangerous fixation, one that threatened to destroy everything. In the palace, the complex family dynamics created an environment ripe for trouble. Sons from different mothers often harbored rivalries and resentments, which simmered beneath the surface of outward harmony. Amnon, being the firstborn, enjoyed special privileges, and his influence was considerable. Yet his obsession with Tamar grew darker each day. His closest confidant was Jonadab, a shrewd and cunning man, who was also King David's nephew. Jonadab saw Amnon's torment and, instead of helping him resist temptation, devised a plan that would set in motion a tragic chain of events. One day, Jonadab approached Amnon with a plan. He observed Amnon's suffering and suggested a scheme to satisfy his twisted desire. He advised Amnon to pretend he was sick and to send for Tamar, requesting her to prepare food for him personally. Jonadab's plot was designed to bring Tamar into Amnon's chambers, where he could enact his dark intentions under the guise of familial duty. Amnon, driven by his obsession and influenced by Jonadab's scheming, followed through on this wicked plan. He faked illness, and when his father David came to check on him, Amnon requested that Tamar come and prepare some special bread for him, so he could eat from her hand. David, trusting his son and unaware of the true intent, granted the request. Tamar, obedient and dutiful, entered her brother's chambers, unaware of the danger that lurked behind Amnon's facade. Tamar, with her gentle spirit, set about preparing the food. She was no stranger to service and kindness, and her heart was pure. She entered the chamber with a loving and caring attitude, seeking only to serve her brother. But as she approached, Amnon's true intentions revealed themselves. He grasped her forcibly and demanded, "Come to bed with me, my sister." His words, cold and cruel, shattered her innocence in an instant. Tamar's response was filled with moral strength and clarity. She pleaded with him, saying, "No, my brother. Don't do this wicked thing. Don't force me. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this evil. Speak to the king, perhaps he will give us permission or help us find a better way." Her voice was trembling but firm, rooted in her understanding of right and wrong, and her respect for the law and her morality. But Amnon, consumed by his twisted obsession, was deaf to her protests. Driven by lust and a desire for control, he overpowered her. Scripture describes how he forcibly raped Tamar, an act of violence and violation that left her devastated. The pain of betrayal cut deep, and Tamar's world was shattered in an instant. Her pleas had fallen on deaf ears, and her innocence was stolen. The assault was brutal, and the aftermath was heartbreaking. After the deed, Amnon's true feelings surfaced. Hatred and contempt replaced his brief infatuation. The scripture tells us that Amnon hated Tamar with intense hatred, more than he had loved her. His feelings of obsession had turned into deep-seated loathing. Without remorse or compassion, he threw her out of his chambers, humiliating her and leaving her broken and devastated. Tamar, heartbroken and humiliated, tore her ornate robe, a symbol of her royal status, and covered her head with ashes, mourning her tragic fate. She went away weeping bitterly, her grief overwhelming her. She sought refuge in her brother Absalom's house, where she could find some solace, but her pain was too deep for comfort. Her life, once full of promise and hope, now seemed shattered beyond repair. Word of Tamar's suffering soon reached King David. When he heard what had happened, Scripture states that he was furious. His anger was kindled, and he was filled with grief for his daughter. Yet, despite his fury, David did nothing. He did not immediately seek justice for Tamar or confront Amnon. His silence was deafening, and it marked a tragic turning point in the story. The king's inaction was a grave mistake. Many scholars believe that David's failure to act stemmed from guilt over his own sins, his transgression with Bathsheba, and the consequences that followed. Others suggest that David was torn between his role as king and his responsibilities as a father, unable to bring himself to punish his son. Whatever the reason, his silence left Tamar unprotected and allowed her attacker to go unpunished. Tamar's suffering and David's silence set off a chain reaction of pain and revenge. Absalom, her full brother, was deeply distressed by what had happened. He saw his sister's humiliation and felt a righteous anger burning inside him. Yet he kept his feelings hidden, waiting for the right moment to act. For 2 years, Absalom harbored his resentment, refusing to speak to Amnon, neither in anger nor in reconciliation. His heart grew heavier with each passing day. During this time, Absalom plotted his revenge. He held a grand feast, a sheep-shearing celebration, a traditional festival that brought together many of the royal family and courtiers. He invited all the king's sons, including Amnon, knowing that the moment would be right to carry out his plan. When the feast was in full swing, and Amnon was intoxicated, Absalom gave the signal. His servant struck Amnon down, killing him instantly, in a brutal act of retribution. The palace was thrown into chaos. News spread quickly that Absalom had slain his brother. Fearing for their lives, the other sons fled the palace on their horses, trembling with fear. David, upon hearing the tragic news, was overwhelmed with grief. The scripture describes him tearing his clothes and throwing himself to the ground in mourning. His heart was torn in two, loving his sons and feeling the weight of his failure as a father. Absalom fled to Geshur, a distant land, where he remained in exile for 3 years. Though he was physically distant, David's heart longed for him. The king's grief and love for his son persisted, even as his family was torn apart. The cycle of violence and silence had caused deep wounds, wounds that would take generations to heal. This tragedy was not an isolated event, nor was it merely about individual actions. It revealed profound leadership failures. David, a man after God's own heart, had faltered in his duty to guard his family. His lack of vigilance allowed darkness to grow within his household. His failure to act decisively and his silence in the face of injustice created a fertile ground for pain and revenge to flourish. The story of Tamar, Amnon, and David's family teaches us vital lessons. One of the most important is the danger of neglect and silence. When leaders, whether parents, guardians, or authorities, fail to confront wrongdoing, the consequences can ripple through generations. Proverbs 22 verse 3 warns us, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. David's silence was a form of inaction that allowed evil to take root. This story also underscores the importance of active protection and justice. Tamar's innocence was stolen because no one intervened. David's failure to respond led to years of pain. As modern families, we can learn that open communication, vigilance, and swift action are essential to prevent harm. We must be attentive to signs of trouble, changes in behavior, withdrawal, or strained relationships, and address issues immediately. Furthermore, the story calls us to break destructive cycles of violence and revenge. Absalom's revenge was fueled by years of silence and injustice. If David had addressed Tamar's suffering promptly and justly, perhaps the tragedy could have been prevented. It reminds us that unresolved conflicts and unaddressed sins only grow more destructive over time. Leadership within the family must be proactive, involved, and courageous. Proverbs 22 verse 6 tells us, "Start children off on the way they should go," emphasizing the importance of guiding children with presence and example. It's not enough to speak words of wisdom, we must embody those values in our actions. Regular family conversations, shared experiences, and open dialogue foster trust and resilience. We must also be willing to confront difficult issues without shame or fear. Ephesians 5 verse 11 reminds us, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, rather, expose them." Families need safe spaces where difficult topics, abuse, betrayal, mistakes, can be discussed openly. Seeking outside help from counselors or professionals when needed is a sign of strength, not weakness. The tragedy of Tamar's story is a stark reminder of what happens when silence and neglect take hold. But it also offers hope. Through awareness, active leadership, and a commitment to justice, families can heal and grow stronger. We can learn to create environments where children feel safe to speak, where wrongs are addressed swiftly, and where love and justice reign. To apply these lessons today, consider establishing regular family dialogues where everyone can share their feelings and concerns. Make time for shared meals, prayer, and celebration of milestones. These moments build unity and trust. Develop a family safety plan, including rules for social media use, emergency contacts, and protocols for difficult situations. Seek professional support when needed, and foster an environment where open, honest communication is the norm. Remember that no family is perfect. Mistakes will happen, and wounds may occur. But with vigilance, love, and a willingness to act, we can prevent cycles of harm and build resilient, loving households. Proverbs 24 verses 3 to 4 reminds us, "By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established, through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures." The story of Tamar and King David's family is not just an ancient account, it is a mirror for our lives today. We are called to break the silence, protect the vulnerable, and pursue justice and compassion. The cost of silence is too high. Let us choose action, speak out against injustice, and foster homes rooted in trust and love. As we reflect on this profound story, remember that God offers hope and restoration. Isaiah 61 verse 3 promises to give beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and garments of praise for a spirit of despair. No matter the wounds of the past, God can restore and heal. The path forward begins with a willingness to speak, to act, and to protect. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the story of Tamar, Amnon, and David. May it inspire us all to be vigilant, courageous, and compassionate within our families. If this message touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the wisdom of Scripture and how it applies to our lives today. Share this story with your loved ones, your church group, and friends. Let us be agents of change, breaking the silence where it matters most, and building legacies of love, justice, and faith. Remember, the lessons of Scripture are timeless, and the choices we make today can shape the future of our families for generations to come. Let us walk in wisdom, speak with courage, and act with compassion, trusting in God's promise of restoration and hope. May His peace be with you and your loved ones always.